Okay, so recording now. So John Robb recording, Alan McGee here about Creation Stories, a film, the biopic about his life. So, Alan, how did this all come about in the first place? You wrote the book. Was it an approach then? Or did you, when you're writing the book, did you think of the book being a film even when you're typing away?
No, no idea, John, on that one. I done it and I sent it to Dean and I sent it to Irvine, not thinking anything. And Irvine went, would be a brilliant film, McGee, but I really like your book. And Dean really liked it as well. I was big mates with Dean for tons of that time. You know, like even big. Although I met Irvine 91, John, before he was famous, going to Acid House Club, Sub Club, and stuff like that, and Irvine was there and everything like that. And he'd put Train Spotting out, I think. But I think he was famous in Edinburgh. He was Irvine from Edinburgh. And then the context is that he was hanging around with the Primals. I got to know him really well. There was big mates with Bobby and Throb and Innes. And it just, Train Spotting built up. Primals were in it. Oasis got asked to be in it. Oasis turned it down because they thought it was about trains. Do you know what I mean? That's actually true. And even though we were all going, it's fucking about drugs, you know, and no went, fuck off. I don't want to be in a fucking train fucking movie. And Primals did a 12-minute version because they knew that Irvine wouldn't try and chop them, right? And they got most of the publishing royalties on that record because they had a 12-minute track. And the way that TKS worked, it was on minutes. So they had they had a track, 12 minutes of a 45 or 50-minute hit album. Do you know what I mean? So they got a lot of the money. So they had a great time with that.
So more like Gravy Train Spotting.
Oh yeah, big time. And then getting that up, running up to speed. I was pals with Dean, especially all the way through that noughties period. Sent Dean it. I sent Irvine it. Irvine said it's fucking great. Shelley around the same time went, it's fucking great. And Shelley and Irvine and me had a conversation that she was going to be the producer. She'd never produced anything ever. She had worked as a PR assistant on the Upside Down documentary, right? That's who she. And she worked, and she around that time she started working for me as a PR. Do you know what I mean? Just like not just kind of doing little things. And she went, I'll be the film producer. Probably we let her do it because we never thought that it would ever happen. I'd probably let her do it because it would never happen. But I went, okay, you can be the film producer and you go and do it. And Irvine fluffed it up, got a kind of rough thing of what he was going to do. And then they started building it together. They got... first thing they did was they said, oh, do you want Ewan McGregor? Do you know what I mean? And I was like, I look like that. It's not going to really work. And then 2 days later, Irvine Welsh came back to me and went, what about Spud? And I went, that actually would work. He kind of looks like me. Brilliant actor. Got Ewan McGregor, Ewan Bremner, eventually said, I'll probably do it. And then Irvine went, what about getting Nick Moran? And I was like, oh, fucking Guy Ritchie, give me a break. I can't be into all that shit. I don't like these movies. And that was a bit a sticking point for a couple of months. And then I met Nick Moran, and he was genuinely brilliant. Total artist. More like Kevin Shields than Guy Ritchie at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he did the Joe Meek film, which is fantastic.
Brilliant. So Nick was, after I'd met him and liked him, I was like, all right, okay, well, you know, yeah. I mean, that ended up turning out a great move by Irvine because Nick done a fucking amazing job, a brilliant job. And then we rolled it on down the track. We were finding it difficult to get funding. And then Nick Moran and Irvine got Danny Boyle. And the minute Danny Boyle attached his name to it, fucking funded. And that it took 4 years for that film to get funded. I must admit, John, I never thought it was really going to get made. They paid me for writing the book, not even writing the book, they paid me for writing the book, but they also paid me to be a consultant on the book. And one of the payments was good, John, on the consultancy. It was like 40 grand or something like that. And I was like, at that point, I started to vaguely take it seriously because I was a bit like, oh, maybe it'll happen. Fuck. Because who gives anybody money these days? And I was like, about 3 years ago, and I was like, oh, that was kind of nice. And then forgot about it. And then another 2 years trundled on. And then suddenly it was like, we've got Danny Boyle. And that was Irvine. They must have just got fed up not getting funded. And they got Danny. And the minute that happened, then it became, right, it's probably going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
So what? I mean, there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of cooks of the broth. So who's making which decisions? I mean, what's Danny doing? He's an executive producer, any overall producer, or?
I'm straight with you, John. He's not that involved. He put his name to it. Mm-hmm. I'd say the main instigator of the whole thing's Irvine Welsh, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The key guy is Irvine. He had the relationship with me. He had the relationship with Dean, who he wrote the thing with. He had the relationship with Nick Moran. He had the relationship with Danny Boyle. If it wasn't for Irvine Welsh in the middle of that, do you know what I mean? I'm not sure it would have happened. Do you know what I mean?
So hence, like what you were saying before we start the interview, that you're kind of starring in Irvine Welsh's film.
I tell you, John, I mean, you know what I'm like. I mean, I was listening to your program earlier on in the radio talk about membranes, and you remember when you made that record, I didn't at any point tell you how to membrane it or unmembrane it. I let you be you, and for better or for worse, that's what I do. With this, it's the exact same thing, and I changed two things about one person, my ex-wife, only because, you know, this is Daniel's mum way back in the day. Yvonne, you'd probably remember.
I know. I remember her, yeah.
And only because I got on so badly with her in the past. And it's now okay, finally, you know, like 25 years ago, right? But or 30 years ago, sorry. And I told him to take there was a couple of brutal one-liners that I'll tell you one day, right? You know, and you'll yourself. But it wasn't because he hates her, because he's never met her. It's Irvine Welsh. That's what he's like.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody gets it in that film. I get it beyond anybody else in that film. I get it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the rehab thing, leave my cock out of it and all that, you know. Rehab is pure rock and roll. I mean, he fucking humiliates me. But at the end of the day, it's a funny film. And I'd say the success of that film is me managing to leave my fucking ego at the door and go, just go with it. Because it's made a better film. If John had been editing Irvine Welsh going, that's not, I mean, look, half of it's not true at the end of the day. But if I had started going, well, you can't say that because it's just not true, it wouldn't have been as funny as, because it's really funny because it's like an Irvine Welsh film, isn't it? And I just, it happens to be supposedly about me. Well, it's about me, but half of it's right and half of it's, do you know what I mean? Is artistic license. But if I had tried to measure it up, John, because it wasn't true, I'm not sure it would be that funny. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just wondered that. Is it actually easier to have a film that's only half true? Because you don't have to go into too deep into yourself, do you?
And I think it's only been a bit difficult with some of the BBC interviews when you get people like Adrian Chiles saying, "Oh, you know, I've never met anybody that says their gran hated them," and I went, "I've never said that." He went, "It's in the film." I went, "Yes, that's Welsh." Do you know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, there's stuff like that in it that's just not true. But it's like there's other stuff. He doesn't go far enough. Stuff with my old man was much, much more violent than that. But it's Hollywood, and it is a Hollywood ending, which I have actually I struggle with that ending, to be honest. But it is probably better for everybody else. But I haven't seen my dad in years, John. Do you know what I mean? You know, and then Irvine's got me and my dad getting into the sunset. You know what I mean?
Oddly, almost a similar ending to the Tony Wilson film, the Monster film, isn't it?
Okay, right.
Yeah. So because that kind of goes into a sunset and a sort of a weird quasi-religious happy ending.
I just think I think Irvine believes his own script. So I was doing a Zoom interview with something, I think it was in for Ireland or something about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he said something to somebody, and he goes, yeah, but Alan, it's all good now. Alan gets on great with his father. And I went, I've been spoken to him for 20 years. And Irvine was like, because it's suddenly, I think he'd realised that he's told this fairy tale ending. And it's just a fairy tale, Irvine. It's not actually true. So anyway, but yeah, you might be right, John. You know me very well. It probably suits me that half of it's just rubbish because I can hide behind that and go, so true.
Well, it's entertainment in a sense. And we're both the same age. You grew up in the 70s. Like Bowie was like massive for all of us. And that thing about it was real, but also not real. And it's an extension of that. It doesn't have to be totally true, does it?
No, I agree. But it's really funny film, and I'm glad because sometimes I can get really precious about stuff, but I didn't this time, thank God. You know what I mean? And I've just let it run. I think why I didn't get precious at all and I just let it run, I think I admitted to myself very early on, you're clueless about this stuff, McGee. You're not clueless about your own life, but you are clueless about movies and films and scripts. Shut up. You've written the book. Just shut up. Take the money and shut up. Because I think with the money now, at this point, shut the fuck up. And I did. And it's made a better film, John. Do you know what I mean?
What about the other main characters? It's built around the 4 main characters from Creation.
Yeah.
Actually, some of those actually seem closer to real. Ed is fantastic. I've not seen Ed for years. It was quite spooky to see somebody play him so well. What's their reaction been to it like to see this version of it?
I'm not talking out of turn when I say that Ed really likes it. And I see, number one, I know how all these actors, even though they never met Joe, Ed, or Dick, right? There was enough footage on YouTube of everybody that they could go, because they're great actors, these guys. They're all the This Is England actors, aren't they? You know what I mean? Svengali actors and all that stuff, right? So they could just become that person. So there was enough Ed Ball footage around that there was 10, 15 minutes of Ed being Ed on the internet that the guy could probably go, that's roughly what this lunatic is. And so I think the Ed character is brilliant. I think the Joe character is good. It's not totally on the money. As Bobby said in some Times interview, the real Joe Foster dressed a lot fucking sharper, which is the truth. That they didn't get that bit right. I think they get Dick really well, but I know Dick is pissed because there's a line in it that says something. Dick says something like, and he didn't like it. When I sent him the script, he was like, oh, and I said, look, everybody gets it. When they go the dullest man to ever pick up a guitar. And you love Dick, I love Dick. He's a great guy. But Dick, you are a geek as well. I'm a geek. I might not be a geek something, but I fucking am. You know what I mean? So is Dick.
I think Dick was genuinely baffled about how somebody was going to play him in a film when I spoke to him. Because he's quite happy to be in the background, isn't he? And to be in the foreground.
Brilliant guy. Yeah, but at the end of the day, Thomas is such a good guy, and he plays Dick well. Offer something like 2 minutes of YouTube footage on an omnibus that he got, and he basically got him. Do you know what I mean? There's a bit brilliant when I've departed to Manchester, and he comes in with a lisp and goes, "It's supposed to be running this record company, remember?" Like, Dick. It's like, Dick was a bit like that. He's a petulant guy for Lincoln, wasn't he? A little bit sometimes, do you know what I mean?
Well, I think he was a responsible person surrounded by maniacs, wasn't he? So.
We gave him a hard time. But you know what? At the end of the day, John, everybody that was involved in that label did okay. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you know what I mean? It just is what it is. Do you know what I mean?
So when you were living all the life, with the music thing from the days that I met you onwards, did it ever feel like a film? Because sometimes in your life, and I feel like sometimes you think, God, I'm not actually living in real life. I'm actually living in a film. And did that ever feel like that for you?
You've become a talking head celebrity, BBC. It's a bit like me saying to you today, I heard you on the radio and you couldn't work out what show it was talking about. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that's your life. I've had a movie made about me. What the fuck? Because it always seems 5 years ago that you and me were sitting outside Seven Sisters Tube in a car, ranting as you were doing, as you were necking speed. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like, it is what it is. It's like, I mean, I suppose music in this life keeps us all young. I mean, I feel maybe not young's the wrong word for it, but I don't feel old either. Do you know what I mean?
A different version of old, an exciting version. So, how much do you think the film was an opportunity for Irvine to actually write about himself a bit as well? It's interesting because you both Scottish, obviously, different sides of Scotland, but there's definitely a Scottish attitude, isn't there? You know, you have to go the extra yard to beat those English.
I mean, I've known Irvine since '91, so I've known Irvine 30 years. It's only in the last few years I've even, you know, Irvine came to London. He was a Laughing Apple guy. He came to London to be in a punky band in the early 80s to make it, and got lost on heroin and squatted, and do you know what I mean? There's a lot of similarities. Do you know what I mean? That's what happened to Innes as well. You know, Innes came to London, lost himself, you know, on heroin, John, and you know, ended up having to go home. And that's I then started the living room. But I'd come with Andrew, but Andrew got ill, went home, took a couple of years out, and I started the living room and met you, met Jenny. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of, luckily I didn't get fucked. Do you know what I mean? I just kept going, you know what I mean?
So do you think this is kind of a Scottish story in a way? Is it of a generation of Scottish?
Yeah, I mean, Irvine's a chameleon. There's a few different Irvine Welshes, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? But that's definitely, he definitely has had a similar story to us. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I don't think he'd be comfortable doing what I've just did and writing a book and having a movie made. But it seems natural to me with this thing. Weirdly, it seems like it's, you know, I mean, do you know what, John? I never thought it was going to be successful. Do you know what I mean? And the reaction's been amazing. And then, you know, Shelley was talking to Sky yesterday. They wouldn't give her figures, but they're fucking happy. I think it might be a hit. Does it feel like a hit to you, John? I think it might be. There's
a lot of talk about it across social media, which is the way you measure it nowadays, isn't it?
Well, you know the thing is, John, it's difficult to tell what's a hit or not because cinemas are not open and we're in a pandemic. Who knows what you do in your house or I do in my house? But when Sky are going, they're very, very, very happy. That's the quote. It was 3 veries, right? You have to think, fuck, maybe it's a hit. I don't know. You know what I mean?
I mean, what's interesting about you and that sort of generation of labels? I mean, some of them like Beggars Banquets, nobody knows anything about Beggars Banquet. You know, they did really well. But there's also the personality labels like Tony with Factory and you with Creation. And was that the initial idea that, you know, that your persona would drive the label? Is that just something that's just couldn't help happening?
I don't know, mate. I probably initially enjoyed it. Do you know what I mean? Enjoyed being a bit famous. But I mean, there's a lot of downsides to that as you get older and you go, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? But initially, I was probably quite enjoyed all that. Do you know what I mean? And now it's just, you know, I mean, what's weird, John, is I haven't been famous in years. And then this film's actually, I'm walking down the road and little kids are coming up to me going, you're the fucking man. And I'm like, I'm not the man. I'm bald. I'm Scottish. I'm 60. I'm not the fucking man. But so I'm actually well known again. But I don't know where this is going. You know what I mean? Because I didn't think the film was going to be like that, John. Do you know what I mean?
Why? What do you think the film was going to be? You mean the reaction to it, or the film itself, the content?
Well, the reaction was going to be because I think if you know me, you probably like me. But if you don't know me, you might go, "That's 90s fucker." Fuck off. Do you know what I mean? So I thought it was going to be really mixed reactions and it'd come out and do mediocre business and go away and that'd be it. That's what I thought. That's what I actually thought. The last thing I was prepared for, the last thing I actually thought might happen was it was going to be outstanding reviews, stream really well in America. And all the people in America are bidding for the film now, all the big things. So never saw that shit coming. Do you know what I mean? And then, do you know what I mean?
So in a sense, you sort of ended up being a rock and roll star without having to bother being in a band for 40 years. Is this a smart way of doing it?
I ended up being well known again, because in the last fucking couple of weeks, just through this film, you know what I mean? Because I've been, for the last 20 years, John, nobody's given a shit, which has kind of been all right, do you know what I mean? I've just kind of like cut about and done my thing, and now suddenly people are on me again, do you know what I mean? And it's a bit like, but I'm sure it'll calm down, but it's like once it goes to America, and I think America might be a lot bigger than here. Who knows where this is going? I think I may as well take all the things I'm getting offered, John. Do you know what I mean? So,
well, I mean, whether you deliberately did it or not, you've been quite good at creating, for want of a better word, the brand McGee. It's.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm getting offered. I mean, this past week, there's major deals getting talked about now suddenly for the label. This clothing brand are going to do like fucking creation clothes. One of the big sports people, trainers. There's a lot of offers now coming in. There's festivals are, want me to DJ and brand it and all that stuff. And this is just in the last week, so you have to think, oh, just milk it while it's there, John. Do you know what I mean? It might not be there next year.
I mean, how much do you give of yourself away? I mean, you don't have to give anything of yourself away, or how much do you need to give away to create the Alan McGee persona, which is partially what's in the film?
Yeah. Oh, that's just a cartoon version, isn't it? You know me now really well. I mean,
yeah, but I'm kind of asking on behalf of the viewers.
I don't think it's really like me, if I was being honest. Do you know what I mean? I've never smoked. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there's loads of just nonsense, really. Do you know what I mean? I don't hate Tony Blair. I know that's not very cool, but I don't hate him. I haven't spoken to my dad in years. I never missed a train to Manchester. I was chasing Debbie Turner. It was like, you go down, boom, 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 boom. I never knew Jimmy Savile was a paedophile. Do you know what I mean? When it came to that, so I mean, I never smoked. You've known me. You've known me forever, John. Actually, right? Maybe when I was in drugs, I was a cartoon. I accept, but now I'm like, when I got off drugs, I was quiet. Actually, do you know what I mean? And they've got me still off my nut when I'm sober. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's yeah.
I think it is, mate. You know what I mean? It just is what it is.
And that's an interesting thing, because the persona of you, the wild, crazy, drug-addled maniac who ran Creation Records, yes, that happened, but it's not actually the Alan I knew. I remember being quite shocked when I found out you were taking drugs, because I thought if there was ever anybody I ever met who didn't need to take any drugs, it was you.
I know, you were one of the very first people that out of my bands I saw taking drugs way back in the day when it was speed. Membranes 82 or 83 doing speed, and I was like, oh, and you're like, get on it, and I was like, no, I think I'll miss it. And then a few years later, fucking the ecstasy kicks in, and then it's game on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a different version. It's like an amplified version, although you were pretty amplified before that.
Yeah. Like, you know what, John? It just is what it is. It's like, but how much is of that, that person is me? I think it's a cartoon version, but I think it's okay. You know what I mean? I mean, the best thing I can say about the film, John, is I can live with it, actually. Do you know what I mean? I don't hate it at all. I just think it's funny. You know what I mean?
I've got to say that Ewan does a great job of you. He sounds really like you, and he has the mannerisms and the energy. It's quite scary.
Yeah, but it's one version, isn't it? I mean, it's not like slouchy 60-year-old with a fucking tracksuit.
No, that'd be a long 2-hour film, wouldn't it? Although, actually, it might be quite an interesting one. Walking around London for 5 hours.
I know. It'd be brilliant.
I mean, did he hang out with you to get those nuances and those?
But not much. I mean, I've met Ewan 10 times, not a lot. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he could get, there's loads of me interviews with people like yourself on YouTube that he could study it and get me, and loads for the 90s, actually. Do you know what I mean? TV programs in the 90s, with loads of people, big sort of like TV shows and shit like that. So he got me loads on things like that. He's just a great actor. I suppose that is what an actor is. They're an impressionist, really, aren't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, was it quite fascinating to see that world? You know, get closer. Not right, obviously, because you're not that involved, but closer to that world and seeing how actors immerse themselves in other people. And different from rock and roll. You know, people always say rock and rollers are actors, but I don't think they are. They just exaggerate one part of their own personality, which is quite different, really.
Yeah, I mean, actors. It's a different thing, isn't it? You know, they plug into you and become you, and then go home at night and don't become you. Do you know what I mean? You know, so it's a bit like, do you know what I mean?
Well, whereas Liam would become a part, you know, he'd just get a part of what he is and exaggerated by 100, and that's not acting. That's just amplifying yourself, really, isn't it?
I think Liam was well cast in the film. That kid, that Brummy kid, I can't remember what it's called, but I mean, he did Liam well. The Noel one is okay. He's not rubbish, but it's not as good as the Liam one. The Liam one's Liam, isn't it? You look at it. I think if I hadn't got both of these pretty good, they'd have got slaughtered, because everybody thinks they know Noel and Liam, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not anything like their personas, are they? They're actually far sweeter and far shyer than the public personas. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, but that doesn't make for a film, does it? So, yeah. So the attention to detail is amazing as well. You know, like that scene in Glasgow, they've got the right clothes on the stage. I mean, who's doing all that? Is that Nick Moran, or is that? I mean, do you actually have people coming in? Does he bring people in to get the right pullover, the right shoes?
That's Nick Moran, and it was a guy doing the wardrobe. I think he was called Dan Hubbard or something like that. The best scene for me, John, is the cafe scene. Because did you ever go to the Egg and Spoon Cafe across the road from Westgate Street, where I was a lot?
Yeah.
That happened. That shit always happened. You'd go to Paul Oakenfold's club on a Monday night, you'd come back with 20 people, you'd party in the office, and at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, somebody would go, do you want some breakfast? People would go, yeah, but nobody would really eat anything. And we'd all go over to that Egg and Spoon Cafe, pretty much like that one. And then somebody, they'd be doing, you play a few shit records, it'd be like Jason and Kylie, and then suddenly they put on Ride on Time on the radio. And the 20 people I went to get, suddenly it became a rave in the cafe. And I don't know, I can't remember if I put that in my book. But that was pure creation. Do you know what I mean? And did you ever experience any of these ones? Were you ever there when that happened? Did you ever see that?
I'm not in the cafe when that happened, but I've been in the creation offices in the chaos period. but I mean, it just seemed like everywhere was like that time. Because the bubble we were all living in was completely mental, wasn't it?
That was brilliant time. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just going to ride it out. I think the thing is, John, the last 2 or 3 days has freaked me out a tiny wee bit, because I didn't think it was going to be that. I didn't think it was going to be that successful. I thought it was going to do all right. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I take the success over like fucking mediocrity every single time. Right? I'm just getting my head around it, because I didn't think that's what was going on, man. Do you know what I mean? I thought, thanks for the money, do a month of press, it'll get okay reviews, it'll die off, and I can just get on managing Happy Mondays and cast. That's what I thought. What's happened is suddenly people are going, oh, you know, these people are in America, Japan now, it's going to be really big. You know, put it back to 22. All this, suddenly it's tactics, because it's like a big deal. Suddenly now I'm a bit like, right, you know, because I had no juice left for that, if you know what I'm trying to say. I just thought it was going to come and go. And some people like yourself probably would like it, and other people would go, it's fucking pish. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I thought.
When you get to America and Japan, you do realise you're going to have to be that one-dimensional version of yourself, because at least in England, people can remember.
McGee. When have I ever done that, John? When have I ever fucking done that?
Yeah, that's interesting, because you never in the middle. You've always been on the side, observing, even the madness, but taking it all in, working it all out.
Yeah,
you weren't the one on the table. You're the one standing next to the table.
I like being slightly left of Sean. Sean confront it, and I'll be in his ear going, "This is what we should do next." You know what I mean? Suddenly, movie at the moment, I'm in the middle. Do you know what I mean? Going, I do like your movie. You know what I mean? So it's a bit like, oh, you know.
Are you getting advice off Sean now? Then you getting?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not telling him I'm freaking out. You know, I'm just saying to him, "Oh yeah, whatever." You know what I mean? It's not true. And he goes, "Oh, fucking 24-hour party." None of that fucking shit was true either.
I think the Mondays is probably a bit more mental than the film could it ever embrace. And he's ended up being the wise man of Manchester, which is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, great.
So is it a sense of closure the film's been made now? You know, all that part of your life, does it seem like a distant land, another volume, another chapter?
I mean, look, John, this is how mad this is getting. People are saying to me, "Is there another book in it?" Because there could be another film in it. So that's how fucking spun out people are getting about it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you mean a part 2 or a book about the film? Or
the next 10 to 15 years, going to Wales and floating in the stock market, and do you know what I mean? All that stuff. Do you know what I mean? The libertines, basically. Do you know what I mean?
So, I mean, what are the hardest parts to deal with? Maybe emotion in the film? Is it the family stuff and the stuff for your father? Is that difficult?
No, it's not. I parked all that years ago, mate. Do you know what I mean? So that's okay. I'm just glad it's out. Do you know what I mean? You know, and
I think Richard Jobson is completely fantastic, isn't he?
I mean, he's. I knew he was going to be brilliant. It was Ewan Bremner that got Richard, but they tried to get Peter Mullen. Peter Mullen agreed to it, then pulled, and there was another big Scottish actor that they all wanted to do it. And basically, the problem was that all the people that were really kind of did it were about 50 and didn't want to play a 60-year-old, 65-year-old guy. Do you know what I mean? So that was a big part, a lot of the problem with it. And anyway, eventually Ewan Bremner was, "Why don't we just get Jobson?" And then they said to me, "Jobson for your dad," and I went, 100% he'll get it. They went, "How do you know he'll do it?" And I went, "Because everybody in Scotland," because Richard's, I'm 9 months younger than Richard, I think, and everybody for Scotland has had that, whether you're Protestant or Catholic, had that dad in that era.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So his dad was Catholic, my dad was Protestant. It was kind of the same thing. You know, the dad was like, "Hey, fucking, yo, you're a wee cunt," and all that. You know what I mean? I don't think his dad was actually that violent, but I mean, unfortunately, I had my fucking old man who was a fucking bully. But at the end of the day, all the dads for that zone were like that. Do you know what I mean? Only person, and it was like kind of freaky, that didn't have a fucking cunt as a dad was Bob. Bob's dad was actually a good guy. He was like me and you. Do you know what I mean? He was like a nice, fucking well-rounded person that didn't hit children. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We knew we're getting fucking battered by their old man. It wasn't just me. Maybe I got it a bit worse in some ways because I was ending up in hospital, but most people I knew were getting battered properly by their father. You know what I mean? It was just the way. It's Glasgow. It just, you know what I mean? That was just what was going on. You know?
Yeah, it was a violent town in the 70s. Whereas now, I mean, of course, that doesn't always totally go away. But it's very different now, isn't it?
Not even Glasgow, John, because Noel's experience was very similar. He got absolutely battered by his father. Do you know what I mean? That's Manchester.
Well, Manchester and Glasgow have always really understood each other, haven't they? Very similar city, very arty, but very tough. Yeah. But the classic scene in the film, which is the one everyone loves, is that bit where Richard Jobson stroke your dad, just shout at you for looking ridiculous.
Brilliant. It's a fucking brilliant. I mean, my dad was a full-on Mason. Do you know what I mean? And you know, and you know what Irvine's like. I mean, did that actually happen? No, but why stop a good story? I mean, most of it's just Irvine riffing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but he tells the story, doesn't it? It doesn't have to be true to tell the story, in a sense, does it?
Oh no, my dad was like that, 100%. Do you know what I mean? About the makeup, 100%. That was a conversation. You know, Irvine gets there. He's just twists it a bit, you know, to make it funnier, I suppose. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not a documentary. That's people have to realise these things, don't they?
I think, John, the fact that I can live with that film because I've accepted that, you know, I'm just in Irvine's film, and because I can accept, it's a kind of about me, but at the end of the day, I'm really just a character in the moving parts of his movie. Then it's okay, because then I just go, you know what I mean? I can, as long as I put my hands up and go, well, that's Irvine, it's okay, you know.
So have you spoken to Irvine since the film's come out at all?
Yeah, we speak a lot. Yeah, I mean, Noel loved it. He messaged me last Saturday night at 4:30 in the morning. Goes, fucking love it. He hadn't seen it. Bobby had seen it before, but he goes, quadrophilia vibes, man. Love it. You know what I mean? So he loved it.
You're not heard from Noel that much, have you? You speak to Liam more, don't you?
No, it's Liam I haven't heard from.
Oh, yeah, wrong way round, yeah.
No, I speak to Noel loads, man, but all the time, just about, you know what I mean? And he loved it. I think Liam loves it, according to Shelley, you know, who spoke to his girlfriend, but I don't know if that's actually correct, you know what I mean? But Noel loves it, Bobby really likes it, Innes loves it. So I suppose the main musical characters in that film are them, and they love it, you know what I mean?
Well, in a sense, they're the main musical characters in the whole story anyway, aren't they? I mean, the primals are right in the middle from the very almost the beginning, aren't they? Yeah.
I don't think I'd have been successful at Bobby Gillespie. You could argue maybe he wouldn't have been as successful without me as well, but I don't know if that's true. But I think my own version is for my life. He was so inspirational to me at different points that, do you know what I mean? When we had nothing, John, 1981, 1982, I used to go up, spend the weekend with him, just listening to the Monochrome set and the Bunnymen and the Banshees, and we had nothing going on, nothing musically. He was not in music, and we were just friends. You knew me 6 months later, do you know what I mean? A year later. But that relationship guided me through being a boy to being a young man, you know what I mean? And so I'm not sure without Bob I would have been that successful. Do you know, I needed him in my life, you know.
Are you looking forward to his take on it in his upcoming book?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? He's one of the strangest guys in a way for me, because I don't really know what Bob thinks about very much half the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you? I mean, it's you know what I mean? You know what he likes in music, but what Bobby thinks half the time, no, I don't. I'm one of his closest friends, and I still don't really know what the guy thinks of it very much. Do you know what I mean? Well, we know what he thinks of politics or music, but if you take away politics and music, what Bob thinks about the 80s and when he was in the Mary Chain, and but he never really talks about any of that. So for him to do a book's quite revealing. Do you know what I mean?
It is, isn't it? It's probably that generation as well. It's quite guarded, isn't it? So that's why the films end up having to be semi-unreal, don't they? Nobody's giving too much away, even at this point, are they?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you know, Irvine. I mean, look, Irvine hates Tony Blair and gives it to Tony Blair with both barrels. Do you know what I mean? And I don't hate Tony Blair. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, but I never changed it either, because I just thought this is the spirit of. If you're going to go the whole way, McGee, you get Irvine Welsh. And he's made the movie for you as well, man. Because if it wasn't for him, would Danny Boyle, Nick Morania and Bremner even have looked at it? I'm not sure they would. Do you know what I mean? So you know, he's the passport to getting it made, really, you know.
So has the process of being involved in this made you interested in filmmaking, or is it still all about rock and roll and
I do music. That's what I do, man. I mean, I've got other things I do, John. I've got property and a lot of other mad shit that you don't even know that I do. But the only thing I'm actually interested in is music. You know what I mean? Which is it's kind of consistently sad.
It's still about the 7-inch single. It's still about the one great track that could change the world.
Oh yeah.
Even though it's diminishing returns, because it's, I mean, of course I still love music, but it doesn't hold the same place in culture like it did when we grew up, does it?
No. Oh, now who was I speaking to? Lincoln, you know my friend Lincoln Elias, the guy that signed all the big pop acts in the 80s and 90s, like Terrence Trent D'Arby, Jamiroquai, Desiree, for his sins, Top Loader, do you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. He signed loads of hits, right? And he's the main guy at signing bands at EMI, right? And he's interested in signing Clockworks. May well happen, right? But we were talking, me, him, and the Clockworks, and he's just going, the problem you've got, and we're thinking, what the fuck's he going to say is, everybody wants to be a rapper, Al. He's probably right. If you're 21, like Daniel, my son's 32, he identifies with Kanye and Jay-Z and Nas. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't really identify with the Clash. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just young people now, John. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's totally different. You go to schools, talk about music, and one kid will know what rock music is because their uncle's into it. And it's all about R&B and hip hop. So it's I mean, who knows? Things chop and change, go backwards and forwards, but there's definitely a generational shift, and the culture that we're involved in is like what trad jazz would have been when we were growing up.
I think you're right. I think it's okay for us to be into it because we're old guys now and we just love it. But young people are. That's maybe why I love the Clockworks. They're young and they still want to do it. Do you know what I mean?